Hi, everybody. We're going to keep it simple with one slide today. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start out telling you a little bit about the outreach activities that we do and the effects we hope to see from that, the training that we incorporate, not just for all airmen, but for key personnel. We're going to talk about some successful mitigations that we had, and we're going to use a case study to kind of display, thank you, sir, display how all of our resources come to bear on a situation, and then we'll follow it up with some challenges that we've seen in the process.
Thank you. Well, we wanted to, over at the 145th, we are located in Charlotte, there at the airport, and we have some consistent initiatives that we do yearly, and I'm honored to actually be here with you guys today because you represent what we need, and we need you, and that's part of what we wanted to say today is how important that you guys are to us. Of course, we're away from Raleigh. We don't have all of the resources that you guys do here, but we really do need you, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Some of the initiatives that we have, Yellow Ribbon is I could call it a course, somewhat of a seminar that everyone that goes on deployment comes back and goes through. And if you have a service that you feel might be beneficial to our people, you would be welcome to come as a vendor. But during that Yellow Ribbon, we have some people who have deployed up to 18 times. So you can imagine they've got needs, they've got questions, they've got concerns. The other thing, one of the other things that we do is we have a gate marquee. We're, of course, much smaller than here, but we make suicide prevention on people's minds, and we may put something like suicide prevention, everyone's responsibility, or suicide prevention, ACET. And as you know, if you know about the Air Force, we believe in the Ask Care Escort, the ACE system, so that's in keeping with that. We use what's called an empty table during our drill month in the month of September, and you may have used this in a number of settings where what I do is actually have a table of one, and I have a place setting, and in that place setting, there's just as if someone was going to eat, everything is there, and we have a picture of a person that no one in our unit would know because it would be somebody in another area from a few years back, actually. And it would be a picture, and it would be that this person is not at the table today, and the reason why is because he chose suicide. And it is a reminder. I've had really good response for that. I've had people cry. I've had people tell me I called my buddy who had been suicidal in the past to check on him. It's a really, really good visual. We also hand out the Veterans Assist, as she was telling you about that 1-800 line. We hand out those cards pretty regularly to people. I give them out in my office, and I'm a one-man band there, so I give them out pretty often. And on the month of September, we give them out at the DFAC, at the dining facility. Airmen seeing the prevention methods in multiple formats seems to really stick in their head. Our people believe in the ACE format, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that because we want to do a simple case study with you. For training, we have a new initiative in the Air Force called the Green Dot Training that Captain Weston is in charge of for the 145th, and I'm going to let her speak a little bit about that.
So for my university folks, does anybody know what the Green Dot program is? Excellent. Okay, so the Green Dot method is a violence prevention program that's focused on bystander skills. So it speaks to the audience members not in terms of victim or perpetrator, and this is originally it was designed for interpersonal violence prevention. So we're talking domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assaults, which is why the SART comes into play. So last year we trained these tools. So we acknowledge that everybody has barriers to action. You know, an introvert cannot realistically be expected to directly intervene in a stressful situation. That's just not their nature. What we train is that we're not trying to change you as people with this training. We're trying to give you skills. So if it's unlikely for you that you would directly intervene, we're going to give you other tools, like perhaps delegation is what's going to be best in this situation. If you fear for your safety, maybe there's a gun in the situation, call the police. That's a delegation. or a distraction. If you can start up another conversation to derail it long enough for the tension to de-escalate, that can be helpful as well. So we look at these in terms of wingman skills. So how can we be there for each other? Because we acknowledge the fact that first you're going to go to your friend when you have something wrong. So we need to train up your friends to be there for you properly. So what happened this year in 2017 is we incorporated suicide prevention into that methodology. And commanders love it because we go from 2 hours of annual training down to 1 hour of annual training, and they're all about getting their white space back on their calendar, right? So what we've done with these intervention skills is we've delineated two different scenarios. We have the early warning signs of a situation of someone who could potentially display some risk factors for suicidality, and what you would do in those scenarios. So for someone who is new to the area, they don't have a lot of social connections, they've just left all their friends and family, you know, maybe they have a young family, a wife with a baby or something like that. How do you speak to that individual? And it's on the premise of the two risk factors that we want, the risk reduction factors we want to bolster are belongingness and inclusion, and feeling like you have a sense of purpose to a common goal. So what we want to do is we want airmen to know that they belong in this group, not only socially, but as a part of the mission. And so there are different ways to do that for the early warning signs, and then in the acute phases if harm is immediate. And let's see. So that training is going to be administered to all airmen. So for a little background, the Air National Guard has about 1,500 personnel total. For our key personnel, however, we have more in-depth training, which is the ASSIST program, which Ms. Ferren can speak a little more on.
The ASSIST program is Applied Suicide Intervention. My goodness, it just went right out of my head. Yeah, but it is about an 8-hour course or 2-day course, I believe, for teaching how to mitigate suicide. And I've been told we're a little bit out of time, so I want to kind of breeze through. But we are looking for, if we're talking about some of our needs, we are looking for providing more service for that ASSIST training to our people, because being where we are, we don't actually get to travel much. Funding can be low, and if there is anyone who can help us out with that, that would be great. But we wanted to talk very quickly, with time being a factor. We have had 3 successful mitigations just this year, and we attribute those things to people like you, interdisciplinary responses, chaplain, medical, DPH, SARC, early intervention, and we really truly believe in the escort program, or the wingman concept. And with that being said, we'd like to give just a quick case scenario that would let you know the importance that we all have and how important you guys are all to our cases. So I'm going to let Lindsey speak very quickly on. We just have a bit of time.
Okay. So an airman who was getting ready to go to basic training came to my office for their pre-deployment SARC brief. And I'd never met this person before, and I give them my usual spiel, you know, hi, what's your name, where are you going, what are you going to train for? And we had a fairly good generic conversation until the individual noticed that on my office wall I have the gender unicorn. And that started an entirely unexpected conversation.
Gender unicorn?
So the gender unicorn is a graphic of the gender sexuality spectrum. And yes, it's a sign of an ally, so to speak. So this individual bravely confided in me that they were transgender. And so knowing that, we talked about, okay, this changes things for your basic training environment. Do you think you're going to be okay in this situation? Will it be dysphoric for you? And they said, oh, it's going to be fine. The day before he was expected to go to basic training, he was going to female basic training. He came to my office, and after about 45 minutes of talking around it, gave me some clues that he was extremely distressed. So knowing my Green Dot training and the ACE training, I said, have you thought about hurting yourself? That opened the door to the conversation. Once the answer was received, yes, I immediately said, well, this is the next step. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go over here. We're going to talk to Ms. Ferren. She's a great person. We do great work together. She's wonderful. You're going to love her, and she's going to have some options for you. Are you okay with doing that? So we go start that conversation. From there, we were able to get the orders amended so that the individual is not leaving for basic training the next day. We also got wing commander involvement to ask some questions from the higher up to see what kind of resources we can bring to bear for this situation. And in the meantime, we also got some community resources. When the individual left the area and moved to a different state, we were able to hook them up with some resources in that area to continue their care. But it involved warm handoffs from many different offices to make sure that this individual was given tools and also that some of the risk factors were removed.
Actually, just to go into a little bit further, we went into DSS services, actually got involved. We had a lot of community resources. That's why I say you guys are all very valuable to us, and we do need you. And together we can work on the problem of suicide. And I really appreciate your time today, and especially appreciate getting to know wonderful people such as yourself who work with our good people.